It's this part of the motorway that exploded as Judge Falcone's car went past.
Joe Masseria. The story of Joe Masseria is full of twists and turns. Masseria led the New York crime family of the same name, with his reign lasting from 1922 to 1931. Seeking absolute control of New York, Masseria battled fellow gangster Salvatore Maranzano in what is known as the Castellano War.
Un capo, piccio, one boss.
But in 1931, Masseria's own lieutenant, Lucky Luciano, betrayed his boss and brokered a deal with Maranzano, positioning himself as second in command. Luciano orchestrated Masseria's hit, and he was shot to death inside a Coney Island restaurant called Nuova Villa Tamaro.
5 espresso.
And do what you need to.
Maranzano was made boss of all bosses following Masseria's death, but he too was killed by Luciano, who went on to establish the commission. Giuseppe Di Matteo. Santino Di Matteo was a member of the Sicilian Mafia, and this won't be the last time that he appears on this list. Di Matteo eventually turned informant and ratted out his colleagues, drawing the ire of other powerful mafioso. They didn't get to Santino, as he was under intense police protection, but they managed to grab his young son, Giuseppe. Gangsters dressed as police officers kidnapped Giuseppe and kept him prisoner for over 2 years, subjecting him to brutal conditions. Santino even came out of hiding and traveled to Sicily in the hopes of rescuing his son, but it was too late. On January 11, 1996, the 779th day of his imprisonment, Giuseppe was killed. Thomas DeSimone. You may know Thomas DeSimone better as the fictionalized Tommy DeVito, the hot-headed and psychotic gangster played by Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
DeVito is modeled after DeSimone, who worked in New York's Lucchese crime family and partook in a number of murders, including those of William Benvena and Ronald Girotti.
Tommy DeSimone was a loose cannon. He was a brute, 6'4", 240 pounds, and he could really handle himself.
DeSimone went missing in January of 1979, and most historians believe that he was assassinated. Famous informant Henry Hill claims that DeSimone was killed on the orders of John Gotti and the Gambino crime family in retaliation for the murders of Benvena and Girotti.
But the promotion is a ploy. Instead of making his bones, Tommy is whacked.
Giovanni Falcone. Remember how we said we'd return to Santino Di Matteo? Well, here we are. His story traces back to Giovanni Falcone, a tough and brave Italian prosecutor who came down hard on the Mafia. He oversaw the famous Maxi trial throughout the late 80s and early 90s, which culminated in 338 convictions and 19 life sentences given to various bosses.
That made Judge Falcone a target, and he paid with his life.
But on May 23, 1992, the Mafia retaliated. They planted nearly 900 pounds of explosives under a bridge and blew them when Falcone drove over it, killing him and a number of others.
It's this part of the motorway that exploded as Judge Falcone's car went past.
Di Matteo took part in this hit and later turned informant, revealing all the details of the assassination.
Giovanni Falcone took his final breath while he was in my arms.
The Blackfriars Massacre. In the early morning of June 28, 1978, a number of men burst into Boston's Blackfriars pub and attacked the occupants, who had been playing a game of backgammon. 5 people were killed in the attack, including owner Vincent Salmonte and night manager John Kelly. Their bodies were later discovered by the pub's janitor. The perpetrators have never been identified, but investigators believe it was a gangland shooting orchestrated by the Irish mob. They had found trace amounts of illicit substances at the scene, and both Salmonte and Kelly were alleged to have personal connections to the mob. Some believe that the shooting was orchestrated by Whitey Bulger, the famous gangster popularized in the 2015 film Black Mass.
Just don't do it again.
Albert Anastasia. A co-founder of the American Mafia, Albert Anastasia ran the organized group Murder Incorporated and what is now the Gambino crime family. He quickly developed a reputation for being ruthless, earning scary nicknames like Lord High Executioner and the One-Man Army.
Albert Anastasia was the perfect model. Within the Mafia, Anastasia was recognized as a ruthless, unflinching killer.
However, his reputation for violence gave Anastasia a number of equally dangerous enemies, and it all came to a head on October 25, 1957. While getting his haircut at the Park Sheraton Hotel, 2 gunmen burst into the shop and shot Anastasia to death.
Suddenly, 2 armed men burst in and opened fire.
The orders allegedly came from rival crime boss Vito Genovese and Carlo Gambino, who betrayed Anastasia, with the latter becoming head of the family.
Albert Anastasia is laid to rest. As a testament to his brutal character, only a handful of mourners attend his funeral.
Carmine Galante. Known as the Cigar, Carmine Galante was famous for his smoking habit and served as acting boss of the Bonanno crime family in the late 70s.
It's very well known that that's what I do.
During his tenure, the Bonanno family entered a war with the Gambino family as each vied for control of New York's illicit substances market. However, Galante proved too ambitious for his own good, and other crime bosses grew concerned about his brazen violence and unchecked aggression. A contract was placed on Galante by the commission, and on July 12, 1979, 3 masked men entered a Brooklyn restaurant and shot Galante. He was killed instantly with the cigar he was smoking still dangling from his mouth.
My mother was destroyed. She was just destroyed.
Paul Castellano. Between 1976 and 1985, Paul Castellano ran the Gambino crime family, having succeeded Carlo Gambino himself after he died of a heart attack. In 1985, underboss Anello Della Croce died of cancer and Castellano failed to attend his wake, infuriating other mafioso.
Castellano's refusal infuriated the rank and file, especially John Gotti.
To make matters worse, Castellano then promoted an undeserving mobster named Thomas Bilotti to underboss, further irritating an already furious group of gangsters. John Gotti and a number of conspirators placed a hit on Castellano, and both he and Bilotti were shot to death outside Sparks Steakhouse.
As Paul opened his door, 4 men in trench coats descended upon the vehicle.
These 2 deaths allowed Gotti to take the mantle and become head of the Gambino family.
Following the assassination, Gotti took over as boss of the Gambinos, but legal issues plagued his reign.
Bugsy Siegel. One of the most notorious gangsters in American history, Bugsy Siegel was paramount in the development of Las Vegas and its culture of gambling.
Bugsy used his charm and millions of dollars from the Mafia on the gamble of a lifetime.
A prolific bootlegger in New York, Siegel moved out west when Prohibition was abolished in 1933, and he became a genuine celebrity as his cultural reputation increased. However, his Flamingo Hotel had a disastrous opening, and he quickly fell into debt with the mob.
Bugsy Siegel was in trouble. The Flamingo Hotel project soared millions over budget.
Some even suspected that Siegel was stealing construction money for his own personal profit. A contract was placed on his life, and on June 20th, 1947, Siegel was shot by a sniper while reading in his girlfriend's home.
A man crept up through the shrubbery against the window.
Somebody put a carbine on the trestle outside the living room.
9 shots ripped through the silence.
The shooter has never been identified. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Speaking of Prohibition, we've come to the most famous gangland shooting of all time. On Valentine's Day 1929, 7 men associated with Chicago's North Side mob were lined up and shot with Tommy guns by 4 unknown assailants.
Moran's gang aren't too worried. They can usually buy the cops' silence with a bribe or 2. But not these cops. They aren't law enforcers.
At the time, the North Side mob were in a war with Al Capone's Chicago outfit, as both vied for control of the city and its bootlegging operations. The shooting became international news and is now synonymous with mob violence.
He was much more likely to hire dangerous gunmen to assassinate somebody than to do it himself.
While the murders are officially unsolved, most people assume that the men were killed on Capone's orders, as he wished to eliminate North Side leader Bugs Moran and his lieutenants. However, Moran was not in attendance at the shooting and lived until 1957.
He never made it to the scene of the shooting. When he saw the cop car outside, he kept driving.
Do you know of any other infamous gangland stories? Let us know in the comments.
Getting hold of the Flamingo seems to have gone fatally to Ben Siegel's head.
Check out these other clips from Watch Mojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.